hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. I am Sherry Reichert-Ballou, author of Say It Now, 33 Creative Ways to Say I Love You to the most important people in your life. And I'm so happy today to have Denise Jacobs. Hey, Denise. And Kendra, I'm sorry, did you say Levin or Levine?
Levin.
Levin. And Kendra Levin. Hi, you guys. Thank you both for being our guest authors. And welcome to everyone who's here with us to participate. We're so glad to see all of you. And why don't we start off, Denise, why don't we start off and have you introduce yourself. You can hold up your book so we can see. And if you would, just to tell us a little bit about how you've been taking care of yourself during the pandemic.
Well, that's actually seems like a lot, but that's okay. Run with it. So I'm Denise Jacobs. I am a speaker, author, and creativity consultant. I am the author of Banish Your Inner Critic, Silence the Voice of Self-Doubt to Unleash Your Creativity and start doing your best work. I say start doing your best work, but do your best work. I speak all over the world, do keynotes all over the world, or used to, and now I do keynotes all over the world from my office, I guess. Also am in the process of launching an online academy for building confidence and creative skills and innovation skills through silencing the inner critic. And also launching a set of gift products to help with creativity and innovation and creative problem solving. What else? Yeah. And what was the question? How do I keep myself, how am I taking good care of myself during that?
So yeah, if you have any self-care that you've been doing that you want to share with us.
Yeah. So, the self-care thing kind of like waxes and wanes. But one of the things that I started doing, because this is actually one of the things that's notable about this period of time for me, is that I'm actually home. With the way that speaking was before COVID, I would literally be gone somewhere between 2 or 3 weeks out of a month. And sometimes I would be home for 2 or 3 days. Sometimes I'd be home for 5 consecutive days. Sometimes I'd be home for 7 or 10 consecutive days. But oftentimes I would go somewhere. I'd be gone for several days. I'd come home. I'd be home for a few days. I'd leave again. And so this is one of the first times actually since I wrote Banish Your Inner Critic that I've been home for longer than I've been home for 4 months consecutively, and wasn't actually worried about like my income stream while I was doing it. And so one of the things I've been doing for self-care during the pandemic is gardening. I've really poured myself into landscaping my yard, and I mean it already was pretty much an edible landscape, but like really leaning in, and now I'm building raised garden beds and stuff. So basically in the morning, I don't know if anybody else has had sleeplessness with the pandemic, insomnia, either waking up in the middle of the night or waking up really early. I started having it where I was waking up really early, and I was like, well, I might as well do something. So I started waking up at about 6 and being out in the garden by 7, also because in Miami it is blazing hot and you don't want to be trying to do anybody's gardening or doing anything outside, after like 10 in the morning. So I've been spending a lot of time outside gardening, and when I say gardening, I really mean like landscaping and yard work. Like I'm not out there with like a floppy hat and like gloves and like rose pruners, because I feel like that's what people think when they think gardening. They're just like, oh, you're going to the garden and you're picking posies. I am not picking posies. I am like hauling big ass wheelbarrows full of wood chips and planting trees and moving stuff and cutting things down and, you know, turning compost bins and stuff like that. But it's also been great.
Wow, Denise. I love that. I love your humor too.
Thank you.
Although I think you'd look really great in a big floppy hat.
Don't get me wrong. I did have to buy, I actually bought a hat to keep the sun off of my head because I was starting to actually have problems with the heat and the sun and starting to have like heat exhaustion. So now I actually am outside and I feel kind of spunky wearing my little sporty baseball cap, keeping the sun off of my face. And oh, sorry, one more thing. Sorry, Kendra, I'll let you get down in just a second. I discovered why people potentially, I mean, this doesn't actually count for the whole bro contingent and stuff like that, but why you would wear a baseball cap backwards.
Oh, Denise, tell us.
To keep the sun off of your neck.
Oh!
Like, I was like, because I'm doing something and the sun's at my back and I don't need to keep it off of my face. I need to keep it off of my neck, and I turn the thing, and it's right. It's perfect. Come on, y'all.
You know what?
I was like, worth the price of admission right there.
I was just going to say, we didn't even know we needed you for all the reasons we needed you today, but that...
It works out.
And you know what? Thank you for bringing the levity and the lightness. I'm already just like, I feel better. Just, I don't know, just hearing you. Thank you. It's awesome. Awesome. I love it. Hey, Kendra, thank you for being here. And I know you don't have your book to hold up, but you could certainly introduce yourself, tell us the name and tagline of your book, and then how you've been taking care of yourself.
I'm happy to. And thanks so much for having me, Sherry. And it's really great to meet Denise and to get to see all of you. So as Sherry mentioned, I'm Kendra Levin. I'm the author of The Hero Is You, Sharpen Your Focus, Conquer Your Demons, and Become the Writer You Were Born to Be. And it's a self-help book for writers and other creative artists that's about sort of using the idea of the hero's journey as a lens to see yourself, to sort of see yourself as a hero on the journey of your own creative process. And it's a tool that I've used in lots of different ways. I'm an editor. I've worked in New York publishing houses for the past just about 20 years. And now I am an editorial director at Simon Schuster, and I head up a team of editors. And I'm also a life coach, and I've been a life coach for over a decade. And I work one-on-one with mostly creative writers and artists. I do workshops, I speak at conferences, I do all kinds of stuff all over the country, and I've done a few things internationally as well. And I've used this kind of tool of seeing yourself as a hero and your creative process or your life as a hero's journey with all kinds of people. I've worked with prison inmates, I've worked with media professionals, I've worked with a group of actors, I've worked with like all different kinds of groups kind of using these tools. And now I am thinking about it again in a new way. It's something I'm always discovering in a new way. My book was sort of inspired by the work of Joseph Campbell, the who he is, but the sort of mythology expert. And this idea of your life as a hero's journey is something I've been thinking about a lot during the pandemic, because it feels like all of us in our own ways are going through this real trial right now, and a really challenging, a whole series of challenging experiences that are testing us in all different kinds of ways. And I was thinking about one of the kind of studies that I read when I was working on this book, and it's in the first chapter. A psychologist named Timothy Wilson did a whole bunch of research on happiness. And one of the things that he talks about in his book is that some of the kind of like key elements to a happy life are meaning, hope, and purpose. Mm-hmm. And, you know, really paraphrasing what he was saying, but basically like people who are able to see the traumatic or challenging or difficult experiences that they have in their lives as sort of part of a larger narrative, part of the journey of what's turning them into who they aspire to become, driven by some sense of meaning and purpose. That people who sort of are able to see things that way are happier overall. And I think this has been a time for me when the drivers that drive me forward in my life feel very different than they did before. You know, the sense of daily sense of meaning and purpose, and sometimes sense of hope, have been not what I'm used to. I won't say they're gone, but they're not what I'm used to. And so finding new ways to find kind of that meaning in life, the hope to, you know, that things will get better, and that sense of purpose of like, what am I on this earth to do? When I get up in the morning, what am I here to do? What is like the small thing that I am here to do today that's part of the greater thing that I'm here to do in the story of my whole life? So that's something I've been thinking about a lot. And some days it's just to bake cookies. Like some days I just need a task with instructions where at the end I have a thing, you know, like I made a thing. Some days I've gotten back into playing the piano, which I haven't done for many, many years. And that is a practice that is just like, you never arrive. You know, it's all about practice. It's all about process. It's being in process. So finding something creative that's not on a screen that can allow you to enjoy process rather than focusing on the end result. So it's sort of going between those two, I think, for me. Like doing something where I know I can have a concrete result. Okay, I followed the directions, and half an hour later, here's the cookies. And then on the other end, something like playing the piano, or it could be a craft, or, you know, any number of things, but where you're just really focusing on the process and not having like a real end goal.
Oh, Kendra, thank you. Wow. I want to ask you something. Is there a consciousness, like when you wake up, are you consciously and intentionally asking yourself, where is the meaning today, or no? Yes. So
No.
is there, it's just that you're just sort of holding that, because I really love what you're saying about that. And I think it can really be helpful to people, you know, to create that meaning or find that meaning, whichever. But for you, it's more just that you're holding it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a thought that, for me anyway, I am sort of delving into in those interstitial moments that we have when we're not doing, you know. So like when you're taking a shower, like that's often when I'm doing my best thinking. Or on the weekends particularly, it is like right after I get up and like, okay, I like brushed my teeth, I had breakfast, I did all the things, and it's like, okay, well, now what? You know, like before the pandemic, the things I would have been doing are so different than the things that I'm spending my time doing now. And I sort of think, all right, well, like where do I want to be at the end of this day? Like, what do I want to have? How do I want to feel about what this day was?
Wow. Yeah. Even that beautiful tool, right? Like just to ask that one question. Yeah. Thank you. And I know I've been teaching myself how to play ukulele, and I could kind of relate. Like I just needed something off screen that didn't have an out. Like I needed something that wasn't like I didn't have to be good at, you know, like I just do it.
I think that's really important what you just said, Sherry, that something that you don't feel internal pressure to be good at.
None. I can barely do anything, but it's yeah. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And we'll come back and talk a little bit more about your book and some things from your book. Let's head back over to Denise, and whether that sparked something, or if there's something that you want to introduce from your book that you think would be helpful. Obviously, what we're doing is just offering support to people during this time. And as we talked about, like in our, you know, promotion for this, also things that can help people get through those inner obstacles.
Right. Well, actually, one of the things that Kendra said that reminded me of something. I actually want to grab and grab something and show it to y'all.
Oh, yeah.
It was really, really, really kind of fortuitous, and I just happened to have like things laying around. But I don't know if you know, but there are these little waterproof notepads that you can put in your shower. She just said, "Oh, I do all my best thinking in the shower."
Yeah.
So these waterproof notepads that you can get them on Amazon. They're called Aqua Notes. Also, if you're like looking for something, you can just look for a waterproof notepad. And incidentally, I have a lot of these laying around because this is one of the things that I have in my creativity and innovation kit. And so I have that, and then I make soap. So kind of that, like, I want something that I can get a thing. I like, if I follow the instructions, I know that I can get it. Then I actually have like soap so that's actually one of the things that's in like the little gift box. I just have them because of course I have these gift box things that I'm working on. But I think it's really interesting. One of the things that you said, Kendra, was that the way kind of, or what I heard you say is kind of like the way your days are structured now, or the way that they're really different than what they were before that, or before COVID. And I would say that's the same for me, except for I feel I always had a sense of kind of pressure and wanting to do things and wanting to accomplish things. And I feel like now that I'm home and I have absolutely no excuse to be like, well, that thing that needs to be fixed, like, oh, I don't have time to fix it, I'll fix it later. Or any, like, now I feel like almost like I want to make sure that, like, because I know that this is finite. I mean, this is finite. It's not, we're not going to be in pandemic phase forever, although it seems like it sometimes. You're like, I just want to go out, I just want to go someplace. I don't feel like wearing a mask. Like, I just want to go back to my normal life or my regular life. But at some point in time, there's going to be some point in time where we're going to get back to, or to a new place that's that kind of more like that place, right? And so, there's going to be a point in time, like, I think for myself, there's going to be a point in time where the events aren't going to be virtual. They're going to be in person again, right? Which is fine because I love doing in-person events. But I'm really kind of enjoying being home. It's kind of exciting to be home for such a long time. And so I feel like I want to make the most of this kind of this, being grounded for however long a period of time. I want to make the best that I can of that, or the most of it. And I'm like, I want to get like all these things that I wanted to get done. So like, I don't have that thing on the weekend where it's like I shower and I have breakfast and then I'm like, what am I going to do today? I'm just like, okay, I get up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to work in the garden. I'm going to do that. Okay. I got to eat because I got to eat. And then I want to do blah, 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 today, because there are all these things. And then usually what ends up happening is I have this long, like, scrolling list of things that I want to do. And then my body goes, nope. You were in the sun for too long. You didn't eat on time. You need to take a nap, or you need to do this, or you need to, but like, and so I have actually been frustrated with how, like, the amount that I want to get done and the amount that I'm able to get done are vastly different, like by like a chasm, right? But, and so I mean, in terms of like this, so kind of like getting back to like the theme of this kind of heart-centered, good self-care, what are you doing? I think one of the things that is happening is, for me at least, is to getting in touch with that point where I need to stop. Like getting in touch with that point where I've done enough, getting in touch with that point where I tune into my body. My body's like that's it. Like you can't, like you would keep going. It's just not going to be good after that. Like it's not going to bode well for you. Last Tuesday, I was in the yard and I was working, and I was like, okay, I got a meeting at 10. It's 9:15. I said I was going to stop at 9 so I could take a shower and eat and everything. It's 9:15. Okay, I'm going to stop at like 9. I was like, I'm going to go for like 5 more minutes and then I'm going to stop. Or like, I'm going to go till 9:25. Something. Anyway, I ended up going 15 minutes beyond the point where I knew I needed to stop, and I actually felt like I needed to stop. You all will probably not be surprised to find out that I ended up having a migraine later on that day that was kind of a doozy and lasted for the whole day. And I had to take 2 rounds of medicine and everything. And I was like, okay. And so for me, one of the things that I'm learning in this pandemic is to listen to my body more, is to listen to my, like, to get better in touch with my rest cycle, like my need for rest, to not question it as much. I mean, I think beforehand, like, I don't know if you because it was like so long ago, it was like all of 3 months ago, but remember when the pandemic first happened and all of these blog posts and articles that started coming out about Zoom fatigue, about grieving, about like why you're tired, like you're like, why are we tired? We're home all freaking day long. And it's like, you're tired because and also because your brain is trying to process all of this information that it can't quite grok, right? That it can't quite put into place, that you're trying to create this whole new paradigm in your head about how life is and what's going on. And your brain is like, it's a lot. I'm going to take a nap, like, which I kind of feel like most of the time. And so I think it's really interesting. Then there's a whole spate of articles that came out that said, be good to yourself, make sure you get rest, make sure you take naps, make sure, because this is a lot. And I think that that's still true. I think we get into a place where it's like, oh, I should be over it by now. Like how many of you, just to take it like a little, just to go deep, since we're all friends here, like how many of you all have like lost a loved one, like, you know, the person has passed on, like you've lost somebody to death, right? So when that happens, and I don't know about you, but when it happened for me, I was working at a community college, and my father passed away unexpectedly. And I happened to be on my way to my parents to visit my parents when my father passed away. So showed up and landed and found out that my father had died earlier that morning. And so ended up spending 2 weeks in Ohio with my mother, trying to take care of all the stuff and everything. And then had to like extend the amount of time that I couldn't come back to work. And when I came back to work and it was like, hey, you know what, I need a couple of days. And they were just like, well, I mean, it was like a couple of weeks ago. And you're just like, first of all, this is my father. Second of all, he died in a plane accident. Third of all, are you a monster? Right? And so, but the thing is it's the same thing. I say that it's similar, that we're experiencing this extreme amount of grief, or like this extreme amount of trying to deal with stuff. And so many people are like, it's done. Pandemic's done. You go outside. You don't have to wear a mask. You don't have to worry about other people's safety, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, no, we're still in it. We're still in it. We still need to do all the good self-care. We still need to banish our inner critics that tell us that why are you upset about this? Why you're taking so many naps? Stop it, shut it. Because this is unprecedented in our lifetimes. There's no playbook for this, right? Nothing. And then to have this plus all of the other traumas that are happening, all of the Black Lives Matter and anti-racism and the political stuff. And I'm like, seriously? Like 2020 bingo? I mean, so I say all that to say self-care is super important right now. And don't let your inner critic or any of those crazy voices in your head, or even external critics who are people who are in denial and don't know how to take care of themselves, try to tell you otherwise. All right. I said
my Denise. Thank you. You know, I was really hoping that, and I figured it would come in, but I was hoping that you guys would really bring in this piece of when that critic comes in. I had it right before this call. I'm just walking from the house to my studio and I'm getting this like, you're not getting enough done. You know, like I started hearing all this like, what's wrong with you? You know, that kind of, and I was like, well, get off my back, you know? So I'm so glad that you brought that in. And also that what you said, you know, about listening to our bodies to know when it's time to stop.
It's huge.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
It's huge. Like, I don't know, how many of you guys have found new awesome shows to watch on Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, whatever? I just discovered The Witcher, which let's just say that if you like big burly men, it's a treat, because Henry Cavill, who played Superman, yep, he can kill all the monsters for me, if that's what you mean. And so, but there are these moments where it's like, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna watch like 4 episodes of The Umbrella Academy, or however many episodes, until I can't go to bed, until I have to go to sleep. Like, that's just what's happening right now. Those weekend days where I'm like, I'm going to get 1,000 things done. And then my body's like, what you're going to do is you're going to watch like 3 movies in a row. That's what you're going to do. And I'm like, you're the boss. What should we have for snacks? So,
wow. Love it. Kendra, I'm wondering if you have anything to piggyback on this.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate everything you're saying, Denise. And I think, you know, this piece about listening to yourself, whether it's listening to kind of the wisdom of your body or listening to what people call intuition, it's really crucial here. And in The Hero Is You, I talk about intuition as sort of through the lens of the mentor archetype. So, you know, of course, we all want to find that wonderful mentor, that kind of wise person that's going to guide us through life and give us advice. And many people do find that, which is great. And also we have kind of an inner mentor. We have our own intuition, our own kind of sense of things, if we can just sort of quiet the noise enough to listen to it. So, so I think listening to that intuition is really crucial, especially right now, whether it's about how we spend our time and how we kind of expend our energy, whether it's about where we put our focus. You know, a lot of my coaching clients that I am working with right now for life coaching have been talking, and, you know, for the past several years, but especially right now, about just feeling like they need to put down the phone, you know, like they need to step away from the computer, like taking in social media and regular media at the rate that so many of us do without thinking about it, without being conscious about it, is really eroding their mental health. And yeah, Karen, boundaries is definitely the magic word. And that is a word that I find myself using a lot with my coaching clients and encouraging them. And I would encourage everybody here, and it's something I work on too, to really define for yourself what those boundaries are. I mean, much the way if you're a parent, you have to define for a young child, you know, you get X hours of screen time, or, you know, these are kind of the rules. You have to do this, but you can only do it in a limited amount. You can't eat all the candy at once, you know. We really have to do that for ourselves. We have to be the adult for ourselves and kind of help ourselves to make those boundaries. So those are just sort of a couple of things that came to me out of what you're saying is this idea of your inner mentor and really like listening to the wisdom that you already possess, and kind of using that to help you make those boundaries, because I think people forget that it's never been the human experience for us to process the amount of data that those of us who live in the developed world today are processing. And I'm not sort of saying that it's wrong, but it's definitely not something, as you say, Denise, that we have a playbook for, that we're accustomed to, that we have a script for. We don't know how to process all of that information. We don't know how to take in all of this data. And we're not, I don't think we're really emotionally equipped to be taking it in all day long. So we need to figure out those boundaries for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to actually, you brought up a couple of really good points, Kendra, about like taking breaks. Like one of the things that I talk about in Banish Your Inner Critic is doing a social media detox. And Lord knows that this is a great time for that. As a matter of fact, I actually did this when the whole Black Lives Matter movement erupted, because I was experiencing a lot of trauma around seeing the posts that people were posting. People were processing their feelings in a very public way. People were reaching out to me, people that I hadn't heard from in years, were reaching out to me, checking on me, which, you know, after a while started feeling like they were checking to make sure that they were okay. Like they were okay with me still, even though that they were white and may have said something at some point in time, but they didn't know. And I was like, you know what? And I got to the point where I was like logging onto Facebook and I just started crying. Like literally just like, but I would see a Breonna Taylor, Armory, George Floyd, so this, blah, and I was like, nope. And I just gave myself permission to not engage. And so, but with this social media detox thing, it's like that, but like being like really, really intentional, you know, super, even more intentional about it, and setting a period of time, and, you know, looking at where you spend your time, what's the most triggering for you, and then setting up things to put limits, whether it's using tools that will limit your time on a particular application, or same thing on your phone, all of this stuff. And so something like that could possibly be, you know, if you're feeling overwhelmed, could be a good thing to do. And then the other thing that you reminded me of, Kendra, was kind of similar to what you were calling the inner mentor. I talk about like an inner evaluator. And I think probably in my next book, I'll be talking about like an inner cheerleader, so the kind of the same sort of thing. But the inner evaluator is kind of that, like, if you are having inner critical thoughts, and especially if it's like more specifically like work related, so not necessarily self-care related per se, but maybe a work related thing where you're being critical about yourself, and you're like, this isn't good enough, I should be doing more, it should be this way, it should be better, I should have better ideas, whatever it is, that you can have, that there's like your inner critic. And some people think that they need their inner critic, and they're like, it helps me and it pushes me to be better. And I'm like, no, it just beats you up, really. But your inner evaluator is that part of you that knows what's good, right? That knows what quality is, that knows, and that could be like your inner mentor too, that knows what you need. So it could be that part of you that says, you know what, you're too tired to try to figure this out right now. Go and take a nap, or go and watch Henry Cavill kill monsters and have his shirt off every now and then, because you deserve it. And you're welcome. Don't say I never took care of you. but it could say like, like, why don't, maybe you need to take a break and then come back to this, sleep a little bit, and then like come back to this when you can do this. Or it'll say things like, this isn't quite what we're looking for, what we're shooting for. Why don't you try this thing? Why don't you try this approach? Why don't you, maybe remember that one article that you read? Go and find that article. That'll probably spark something for you. Something like that. That's like your inner evaluator as opposed to your inner critic.
I love that, Denise. And
Yeah.
I love what you're saying about that kind of like being able to be discriminating, and I think that when we talk about self-care, it often takes on this tone of like very nurturing, a softness, a gentleness, and that is definitely an important part of it. And I think another important part of it is what are you caring for yourself for? Like, it's not only about just like that being gentle to yourself, being soft with yourself, but like kind of saving and cultivating your energy for what matters, right? And,
preach it.
And like that's something that I've been thinking about a lot during this time, because there's so much that's so overwhelming and so upsetting that I don't want to take in. And at the same time, for me over the past couple of months as a white person, there's a lot that I feel like I should take in, I need to take in, and like I need to learn and I need to work on. And I think it's important for all white people to really be thinking about like saving some energy for that, like, and using self-care, that not just to be kind to yourself and not as an excuse to kind of like turn everything off, but as a place where you nurture yourself so that you have the strength and the energy to do whatever it is to educate yourself, whether it's reading a book like Me and White Supremacy, which is like a tough read that is like really, really worth it to get through, or whether it's like looking at the way that you do things in your job, and like, are there ways that you can be more anti-racist in your job, or any number of different things, but kind of like really being deliberate about what you're doing that self-care sort of to save yourself for.
And that's really great. I refer to that as selffulness. So instead of selfishness, I call it it's not selfishness because it's totally different, but it's being selfful. It's selffulness. So taking care of yourself so that you can take care of the well-being and the welfare of others.
Wow. That's beautiful. Oh,
thank you.
I love this. And I just want to see if anybody wants to jump. Karen, come on in, and then Rachel. Yeah, jump on in.
So I love this conversation, and I read a book, I don't know, a couple months ago, as all of this stuff was happening, by a man named Resmaa Menakem, who is, and his book is called, I have it right here, My Grandmother's Hands. And he is, the book is Racialized Trauma and the Pathway to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies.
Woo!
Yeah, he's amazing. He has a free course out there. The book is just amazing. But what you were saying, Kendra, about, saving our, resting so that we have our energy to put towards something, and in particular for white people doing anti-racist work, he talks about the fact that white people tend not to have the stamina or the humility. And as I read that, I just was like, he's right. And so how can we then expand our capacity for this, not just physically and like with our energy, but our emotional capacity, the capacity of our nervous systems.
That's amazing.
To be able to do the work. And
I so support that. I support you so much.
So that, yeah.
So cool.
Aaron, will you put the name of the book and the author in our chat?
Sure thing.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And Rachel, I know you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I love this conversation. It's so opening, and I love that. I love when it gets me to think even bigger. And so, you know, I work a lot with abuse, and so the trauma. And one of the things, you know, about a lot of what you two are talking about with the self-critic and all of that is a lot of people don't look up the definition of emotional abuse, of verbal abuse, to realize that we do it to ourselves. Girl. And when we verbally and emotionally and psychologically abuse ourselves, we project that out to the world in some way, shape, or form. And it comes back to us in some way, shape, or form. And the fact that all this new research is saying that trauma is passed down in the DNA. So you look at family patterns, and if abuse and neglect and trauma have happened in the past in your family, let's just talk instant family, it's going down. So then you go back and you're talking about generations of unhealed trauma, because not only was there the trauma of slavery, not only was there the trauma and abuse that comes with that. So you imagine all of that getting passed down, and then not having the tools to realize that a lot of what people are experiencing is PTSD and CPTSD. And so they're not getting that. I mean, and then they don't get the help. And there's so much help out there right now. There's so much help, but they don't even know that they have it because the healthcare is not there to show them that this is part of that rage that keeps coming out. This is part of why, even if you're not being attacked, you feel attacked because you're literally traumatized from generations.
Right. And also because all of society is structured to tell you that you're not being attacked. This is a problem.
And they try to hide from it.
This isn't, no, this is the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like this. What, you can't find any dolls in the store? Well, I'm sorry. I'm just like, they just made, there's not enough call for brown dolls. There's not enough call for, there's not like to have it. It's our, we're getting a whole, like, we're just going like, so, but just to have it so institutionalized and so systematized, and to know that it was literally started from the beginning just to make it work, right? Like when you realize, if you do any research and know any stuff about the history of slavery, I was just talking to a friend of mine last week, where she was just like, I didn't know this, but that like there were indentured servants from Europe, Irish and all this stuff, that were coming at the same time that African slaves were. And before they created racism, because it didn't exist before they created it, these indentured servants were like, you're an indentured servant, I'm an indentured servant, like, you know, like let's hang out and fraternize, right? Which they did. And then they were like, no, we have to figure out how we're going to make this so that European indentured servants feel superior to these African slaves, even though they're in a similar thing. So then they created different laws for, I mean, it's just insane. And yeah, so this, but here's the other thing too that I think is important, Rachel, which is a lot of times people don't realize what I feel like I'm seeing is that the trauma that comes from racism, everybody's traumatized by it. It's not just Black people who are traumatized by it. It's not just brown people who are traumatized by it. Everybody is traumatized by it because everybody knows on some level that it's wrong. And when you get a whole society built to tell you that it's right and it's okay, and you know inside that it's wrong, you have this cognitive dissonance that is traumatic, that comes with you, that goes down through the ages. And so anyway, so I want to talk about some inner critic and some outer critic.
One last thing I wanted to say is just about the with the working with abuse and all of this is the difference of taking responsibility and being accountable versus blame and self-blame. Because if it gets pushed off to the next person, then we don't change the problem. We stay in the problem. Whereas if we can be accountable and be responsible for our own actions, we don't have to take the blame, the shame, and the guilt inside of us to create more of that trauma you were talking about that is in everybody. So yeah, and it's so funny that you tied that in, because that's exactly where I go. Because it's about taking the accountability and responsibility so we can shift and change that too, and not being that inner critic of ourselves over it, because that drains our energy.
That totally does. It totally does.
Okay, sorry.
I know, so exciting. I want to take just a moment. I just need to like open the door for my cat, because he's standing out here. He's been rained on, and he's wanting to talk about trauma. He's like,
you literally wanted to open the door. I thought that was a metaphorical door opening, but yeah. Perrin, did you have something else you wanted to add? I saw you.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I can't say enough about this book. And what's fascinating about the guy who wrote the book is that he is from Minneapolis, and his brother is a Minneapolis policeman. And the sort of like 3 sort of sections of the book, he talks about what he calls black body trauma, white body trauma, and police body trauma. And how, you know, like what Rachel was saying of it getting passed down, right? He goes into the history of how horrific white people were to each other, like centuries and centuries ago, like way before slavery in the United States. And like, horrific. We've been doing horrific things to each other forever.
Yeah.
And so it's like, then we're always constantly looking like, well, who can I offload this onto? Right. And you know, yes, it is. It sounds like we're all on the same page. Doing similar work. Totally. Yeah.
I just wanted to see, did anybody, Linda, go ahead.
First of all, just an interesting observation that I discovered through writing one day was the word blame ends with the letters M-E. So blame ends with me, which for me was a powerful way to transform that process of blaming, because I can be the person who stops that. So that was interesting for me. In terms of dealing with the legacy of racism, I've been doing a lot of reading, and last year I was in I don't know if any of you know Patty Dye, but I was involved with her. I know, Sherry, I know you do. Her Hard Conversations book club. And then now I just last week started her Intro to Racism and Its Undoing course with Victor Lee as well. And I'm also reading See No Stranger by Valerie Kaur. And that book has been really powerful in the process of dealing with the rage. There's the middle section, part 2 of the book really deals a lot with rage and having a safe space to rage. It was hard for me at first because I always think of rage as leading to violence. And so I had this resistance reading that chapter about, you know, this healthy divine rage that she's talking about that's very focused and that is protective as opposed to violent. And so that's been really interesting. And that process for her was rage and then listen and then reimagine. And that was really a powerful 3-step process for me that I found to be helpful to reimagine things. I'm still working with it, but it's a really good book in terms of how to transform what we're feeling. And she calls it revolutionary love, and this process of birthing from this new place of love. Like not going back to what we called normal before, creating this new normal now from a different place. So it's, there's been a lot of powerful processing happening.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. And I say Marlena had, and Laura, did you have something too after? Okay, Marlena, then Laura.
Linda, I love the birthing analogy. It's absolutely beautiful and so appropriate. This is a really powerful conversation, important conversation. And I'd like to go back to what Kendra said about the hero's journey. I personally was very drawn to it. The forwardist for a book that Mango will be publishing soon that I wrote, my forwardist, Phil Cousineau, referred to my story as a mythic hero's journey. And so Kendra, when you were talking about our lives as hero's journey, it really spoke to me. And I want to take it to the conversation we were just having and maybe ask any one of you, what would happen if we took our collective journey right here, right now, and imagined it as a hero's journey? How would that help us find where we're going and how we go there and how we deal with the obstacles along the way? Because it's not only our personal lives that can be reimagined as heroes' journeys, but our collective lives as well, I think.
Yeah, totally. And something that I has been helping me get through, honestly, the past 4 years is the belief, whether or not it's the case, that the period in this country's history that we are in right now is the kind of like facing the shadow period of the hero's journey. And that's the part of the hero's journey where the hero kind of comes face to face with this kind of manifestation of their own like greatest fears and greatest anxieties. And I mean, I do feel like this country is experiencing a reckoning on a new level with its horrific crimes, and the crimes that have really like implicated all of us. And what I would love to believe is that coming out of this period, however long it lasts, maybe just a few more months, who knows, but will be that turning of the corner that you see in the hero's journey. Precisely. Where the hero kind of conquers the shadow. I mean, I don't think all our problems are going to get solved, but kind of coming through this period of great terror and into a kind of I don't know. I mean, the thing about the hero's journey that's not like life is it keeps going, and I think that's true both on a personal level and on a collective level, that we kind of just keep going through the different stages of the journey in a kind of a spirally way. Mm-hmm. So we don't ever reach that denouement. We don't ever reach that place of like, what Campbell calls integration, meaning like the hero has absorbed all of the knowledge from the journey and now is ready to be the mentor to the next hero.
We get to do it over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we
reach it, but then we need to learn all over.
Right. Yeah. It's like we reach it for one thing, and then it's like, and then you're already embarking on another journey. You're like, can I rest for a moment? But the other thing that also reminds me of, I don't know if all of you or any of you are familiar with the Mayan perception of time, that instead of time being linear, that it's a spiral, and that so look at you guys are awesome. Like, this is like such an elevated conversation, but that we'll be in the same place on the circle, but we'll be in a different place on the spiral, right? And so that it's like we come and then we go through the whole hero's journey and everything, and then it's like great, and then it's like, oh yeah, but now you're at a different level, and then you're going to go through the whole thing again, and great, and then oh okay, woo, or that because life is the way it is, that you may be in one place in one part of your life, on one place in the hero's journey, and then another part of your life in a totally different place. So you could be having like a dark night of the soul in like one area of your life, like in your career or something, but you could be like having like the like part of the hero's journey, like in your love life or with your family, with your kids, or whatever it is. And so it's or with your creativity or with your self-awareness or whatever. And life is it's a whole trip. Like it's a,
that's for
oh,
sure.
Laura, didn't you have something that you were going to say after Marlena said
Thank you,
something?
Denise. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. So, well, first of all, I'm just kind of overwhelmed because every single part of this conversation is like, yes, yes, yes. Similar reading materials for us all, it sounds like. And, but what I wanted to share was there's a guy named David Burns who created or was part of creating cognitive behavioral therapy. And he has a new book coming out called Feeling Great, which is about this new kind of therapy that he's invented called team therapy. And one of their techniques is this thing called that they do with patients when they have these negative thoughts called melting the resistance. And the way they do it is by thinking about what's beautiful and awesome about that negative thing about you. So you have this feeling that something's very bad, like you're anxious or you're depressed or you are criticizing yourself, and what does that show that's beautiful and awesome about you? And I think that in this bigger conversation, there's something about that is important to say, before we can change things about ourselves that have been existing in us for a really long time, we have to understand like what benefit did they give us, what actually was good about them, because it's not black and white, it's not that polar. It's like there are some things that this helped you with to be criticizing yourself, but then maybe you need to let go of that, because where you really need to be is going to be at a much greater level if you can dial that down. So I thought I would share that little thing.
That actually reminds me a lot of there's been times where I've meditated regularly. Now is not one of them, but I did do I've done a Vipassana meditation retreat twice in my life, and I just did one in December. And it was a very interesting experience because I had a really bad respiratory infection, which may have been COVID. Who knows? Wow. Because it kicked my butt, and it lingered for a long time. But one of the things that I really love about Vipassana, I love about the practice, is, at least how I interpreted it, is that part of the thing is observing. Part of the practice is observing. So you're really paying attention to your physical sensations, and instead of reacting or responding or trying to change them or trying to get away from them, you just observe it. And the way my personal interpretation was, observing means feeling it. So if you have, for example, if you get hurt or you feel something, you feel pain, or you have a headache or something like that, a lot of the time what you're doing is you're trying to get away from the discomfort, right? You're trying to get away from, you're trying to distract yourself from it, whatever. And one of the techniques that I learned with this meditation is to really sit with it. As a matter of fact, to not try to get away from the discomfort, but to try to, or the sensation, but to try to like get into it so deeply that I'm really feeling it. And one of the things that happens for me, it's the way I'm wired. I'm not quite sure if anybody else is wired this way, but oftentimes when I try to feel something, it changes, right? So when I try to feel the discomfort, if I try to feel the itch, or I try to feel the tension or whatever, and I'm like, whoa, and in my head, I'll say, okay, well, where is it? I want to pinpoint the exact location in my body where that thing is. And what ends up happening is I feel like I'm inside of my body going, okay, is it here? And then I get to that place and I'm like, no, that's not where it is. Okay, is it here? Nope, that's not. Is it? What is it? Does it really hurt, or is it? Well, how would I describe this? And I get into this whole thing where that discomfort or whatever it is, that experience starts to transform the more attention I put towards it, right? And the more focus I put towards it. And so that was kind of related to, I think what you were saying, Laura, of like this whole of like, we're in this place of kind of experiencing things kind of differently or whatever. I don't remember what it is that you said, but I remember that it's something that you said that reminded me of that. And it's like, oh, like to be in this moment and to really, really get in touch with what we're feeling and what we're experiencing and what sensation we're experiencing, and to really, really feel it in a way and experience in a way that we haven't before, because we haven't really had the space and the time to put that much focus and attention to it as we can now.
Wow. Can you guys just all stay here for the next 4 months with us? Please? I don't want to leave. This is such, wow.
You're all speaking my language.
I know.
What a beautiful, beautiful group of people. And we've reached the hour. I want to ask if, first of all, Denise and Kendra, if you had 5 more minutes, or do you need to go?
Absolutely.
Brenda, who isn't here, but the associate publisher of Mango, started something in these groups that has been really meaningful, which is that at the end of our time, we just go around, and you don't have to participate if you don't want to, but if there's something that you would like to say that really moved you about this, or that you want to take away, or perhaps an intention, and it's kind of a nice way to close out our group and just to get a chance to hear, what really moved people. So if you have to hop off, I understand. Anybody who wants to stay, what we do is just kind of like, I'll just call on someone, and then you pass the mic, as it were, to the next person. So Nina, you're in the corner of my screen. Why don't we start with you?
Okay, I was just blown away by the wisdom. Thank you. In the same tradition that Denise was discussing, Vipassana, they talk about metta, or loving kindness. And I've been doing that practice where you start with a kind of a very positive, easy to love figure, and then you gradually move through, and at some point you include yourself with that, and then you move to the difficult person. And so I'll just say that, I wish you all metta, I wish you loving kindness, and I'll just say the phrases as I've learned them is, may you be well, may you be happy, may no harm come to you. And also may you receive joy and light. So thank you so much. I always enjoy these, and this one was especially helpful today. And Scarlett had a great time too. So.
Nita, thank you. Who do you want to pass your mic to?
Oh yeah, I get nervous, and I always forget that part. I'll pass it to Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you all. I mean, this has been, I love this one. It has been awesome. I took so many different notes, so I love that. When I feel drawn to take notes, I know it's like going in the right direction. And, one of the things I've been working on in my work is aligning my energy with love, abundance, and peace daily, instead of fear, lack, and separation. So I look at people, and I look at, where are they? Where am I? How do I, only person I can change is me. So what do I have to do to get to love, abundance, and peace? And I've been doing it, with my page and everything. And I feel like because I'm doing that, it helps me take in this so much more. I really feel it. I feel it fully, and I've just enjoyed every moment of it. And like, I've got goose pimples like so many times during this, because it's like I feel connected, and that's because I'm aligned, and I love that. And so I really want to thank you, because I just got so much out of today. And thank you, thank you, thank you. So I am going to pass it to Denise, because she's right next to me in the screen.
Okay. And I actually turned off my view so that I wouldn't get distracted by seeing my face. Let's see. I am really touched and blown away, like I said, by the level of, I don't want to say authenticity, because that's not it. Like just the depth of this conversation, that this could have been so superficial, and so like, oh my God, so like, you just have to take good care of yourself. And, you know, like it could have been a really kind of, you know, not ridiculous, but, you know, like, oh, that was okay, that was a thing. But this was really very satisfying to have such a wonderful group of people who are so forward thinking and aware and doing the work, and I'm really touched and blown away. And so I'm grateful that you all showed up, and that you were willing to contribute and be part of this and listen to me and my stories. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. And who am I going to pass it to? Linda.
Hello. There were, like Rachel said, there were so many things. The idea of the hero's journey in general as our collective story, and using that as a way to reimagine it was really helpful for me, because I've been having a lot of trouble with reimagining things when I get down that rabbit hole of social media and all the things that are so upsetting right now. So that will be a good visual for me. Denise, in terms of the meditation with the body too, this is going to sound weird, but it's actually was really helpful for me in terms of menopause and hot flashes. When I would feel a hot flash start, if I could just breathe into the spot in my body where I could feel that heat kick in, it would dissipate the hot flash. And I was like, wow, it was a miracle. So that was really helpful to me. The waterproof notepads, I'm totally getting those because I always get so inspired in the shower. I have no idea why. And then I'm totally getting those. And then this morning, I was working on some writing and I was looking at The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And I don't know if I said that right. And there was a phrase that said, work is love made visible. And it's so nice to be with people who are making their love visible in their work. And I'm so grateful to have those conversations with you all and to witness it. So thank you very much for that gift that you give me each Wednesday, but that you're giving everybody else too. Thank you for making your love visible. I'll pass it to Karen.
So it's kind of funny because I think it was last week that I was here with you all and you were talking, and when it came to this portion of the episode, I was like, I blanked out and I was like, yeah, I don't have anything to say. But this was a really rich, joyful conversation. And I just really appreciate the back and forth and the ideas and the way the conversation flowed naturally into different areas. And there was always something, you know, as Denise said, you know, not just like, oh yeah, take a bubble bath. Like, I mean, it was deep and it was good. And that's, I'm always willing to go there, and I'm always appreciating that. So thanks for that.
Do you want to pass the mic, Karen?
Yes, I always forget. I'll pass it to Kendra.
Thank you. Gosh, yeah, I'm taking a lot away too. And I'm really glad to have gotten the opportunity to do this. I didn't really know what to expect. And that's part of what has been a pleasure about it, is just like going into a situation where I don't know what to expect, because I feel like life during the pandemic has gotten a lot more sort of, while the world is very unpredictable, day to day has gotten very predictable. And you know, I so appreciated all the wonderful recommendations that you all have given. There's like a lot of books I want to look up now. Denise, I loved so many things that you said, and I really I'm gonna sort of be thinking about the whole idea of the inner critic differently as a result of some of your comments. And Sherry, the tone that you set is so warm and loving and just really joyful. And it's just really nice to talk to some new people. Like, this is making me realize, and particularly how much I'm enjoying this, is making me realize it's been an awfully long time since I just got to talk to some nice strangers. So thank you for kind of bringing that into my life today. And I will pass it over to Laura.
Thank you. Well, what I was going to say is very, very similar to what you said, Kendra, that I didn't know what to expect. Thank you to Denise for mentioning it so that I discovered this. Amazing. And, you know, one thing that, so one of the things that I work on in my work is around connection and loneliness. And I think that in this time, one of the things that I miss the most is just that serendipity of like meeting, you know, being in a situation where I'm like, whoa, like I was not expecting to have this conversation or be moved. And for some reason in this week, I keep having that. I just, something is obviously, like the universe is speaking to me or something, but I'm discovering through book clubs and this kind of opportunity to really have a connection that I wasn't expecting, and that, you know, I feel like shifts my experience of life. So yeah, really appreciated getting that opportunity to be a participant today. And I think the last person maybe is Debbie. Is that right?
Yeah. Debbie.
Yes. And I really want to thank everybody for such deep wisdom and a meaningful hour. And my big takeaway is I'm going to work on kind of quieting my inner critic and embracing my inner evaluator, my intuition, because I think that's the way to go. So so thank you. And now I pass to Sherry.
And by the way, Debbie is with Mango and is the one who really helped to get us all here into the Zoom's call. So thank you, Debbie, for all your work.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Yes. Wow. You know, there is a tremendous amount of grief in my household right now. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to get on this call. And I'm so grateful. And yes, that would have been fine if we talked bubble baths, but I don't think that's what we need, right? Like, I think we're all like really recognizing what we truly need. And I'm so sorry, I forget which one of you said that about like, oh, I think it was Kendra, right? Like, so what are we taking care of ourselves for? Where do we want to use this well of energy? And all of you, each of you in your own ways, has just really informed for me how essential this is to healing, right? Like, this is what we need. And part of it is being challenged, you know, and part of it is being asked to think in ways that maybe are hard, or to see myself in ways that are hard. And that's part of self-care, actually, in a really big way. So grateful to you all. And I know that someone else mentioned Zoom fatigue, and I was just thinking, holy cow, did this really lift me? You know, so there's the opposite too. There's the opposite. You know, your beautiful fab sitting here, I just can't, I meant it, but I was like, I don't want you to go, you know, like your beautiful faces. I just thank you. First of all, of course, Denise, Kendra, the fact that you two were like, sure, we'll show up without even really knowing what we're doing, spending your time to be with us, bringing everything that you brought to this conversation. Thank you. Again, Debbie, thank you for helping us coordinate it. Thank you to our other Mango authors that are here, and thank you to our guests that are here. We are here every Wednesday, and what really makes it, as you all know, right, it's like everybody's showing up with everything that you have, exactly as who you are, that makes these so wonderful. So grateful. Thank you. Hopefully we'll see you all again.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, everyone, take care.
Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.